That brings up another question about Congress's image, some of which is based upon the perception that there is kind of a hint or stain of corruption sort of in the atmosphere. Now, that's long been said of Congresses for decades. But certainly, there is the perception that special interests have undue influence, that the wealthy interests and moneyed interests have more access to policy making than the average citizen does, that lobbyists have undue influence. So with that as a premise of one of the reasons that Congress's image has been tarnished, especially this year with the Jack Abramoff scandal, you were there in the Republican majority when something called the K Street Project was instituted. It was Tom DeLay's idea. And this was an idea to put more members of the majority into lobbying firms, have put more Republicans into lobbying firms, and then bring those lobbyists in to help write legislation, which he believes to this day was a very successful way of disciplining, focusing legislation, bringing in the people who you know are going to support what you're going to do, using their expertise, et cetera. Did you see that close up, and did it have the impact that it's been said to have, and was it a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, people think Tom DeLay invented the concept. He didn't. He just refined it and made it more structured. But I would suggest to you that my experience is lobbyists have always been considered resources. And lobbyist doesn't mean someone who has the name lobbyist that you're evil and sinister. It just means you're an advocate. I point out to people that lobbyists, the Council of Churches has lobbyists, the Conference of Bishops has lobbyists, Common Cause and a lot of the good government organizations have lobbyists. They're not all evil, sinister people. As a matter of fact, I would say Abramoff is the exception, not the rule. But they're advocates, and they're talented, and they're well paid, and they're highly skilled. And it's always been that amendments were proposed to advance one cause or another. And over the years, whether Republican or Democrat, was give me some suggested language type of thing. Those things, that's gone on since the beginning of the Republic. But it was so organized and so structured that one had the impression that unless your entity hired only a Republican, you wouldn't get in the front door. And I think that is absolutely wrong. I don't find anything wrong with reaching out to your friends, people that are sympathetic to your cause and you're sympathetic to their cause, and getting their assistance. But to the extent, he made a new art form of it, Tom DeLay, the K Street Project. I think he overdid it. I can recall one high-profile case when he protested vigorously because one association was hiring a former member who happened to be a Democrat, and he insisted that not happen. Well, the Democrat got hired, and he's a very effective lobbyist in Washington today, and I might add, a highly respected guy. But I think people, I have this all the time, people say, man, I bet you spend a lot of time with lobbyists. I say, you're darn right I do. The lobbyist who is really worth his weight in gold is the lobbyist who will come in and say, here's my position, and here's why I think it's important, and here's why I think you should support it. But he's also going to say, now here's what the other side is saying, and here's how you respond to that other side. So he give you the other side. I always say, what's the best argument against what you're asking me to do? And any lobbyist that's any good will say, well, here's what you'll hear most frequently in opposition to what I'm proposing. I said, what's your answer to that? Doesn't mean I'm going to buy it. But so lobbying is sort of a necessary evil, if you will, and I don't even want to associate evil with lobbyists, although there are lobbyists who are evil. But the overwhelming majority of lobbyists, and Washington has them by the thousands, are just fine, decent people, just like the people in this audience, who are working for an employer and doing the best job they can in their particular position. Their job is to advocate for this or for this.
Let's see, we've got just a few more minutes here, so let's get another question from a student.
As an elected official, you have to pander and represent the interests of the people who elected you, but as a human being, you probably also have a conscience that you have to vote on. Have those two things ever come in conflict while you're in Congress? Have you voted on something and the people who voted for you were like, no, that's not right, or anything? Or...
I would say to you in response, no, I don't think that's happened. And I'll say to you, how do you know what your people want? What the people I represent, I guarantee them, is that I'll go to Washington. Here's what I think they say to me. You go down to Washington. We're hiring you to do a job. We don't have time. We got a career. We got family. We got other obligations. You're our hired guy. Go down to Washington. Do the best job you can. If we don't like what you do, we're going to get rid of you. So I think the marching orders are go to Washington, study the issues, get as much information as you can, weigh the pros and cons, and then do what you think is right. And that's the guiding principle I operate under. Edmund Burke, your representative owes you not his industry only, but his judgment. And he betrays instead of serving you if he sacrifices it to your opinion. So I think about these issues, and there are a lot of issues where I agonize. Well, not a lot of issues. There are some issues where I agonize, and I genuinely sort of toss and turn and wonder what the right thing is. And there's no place you can go to, any book, chapter 7, paragraph 3, here's the answer. You have to do what inside tells you, and what your gut and what your intellect, based upon if you did your homework, tells you. There have been a few votes I've had in my career I was sort of embarrassed in, and I'll tell you a classic example. It's going to make you laugh. There was once an amendment on the floor that would deny funds to the Library of Congress to translate Playboy into Braille. And I stupidly voted for it. It's one of those things, it was sort of a throwaway vote. It had no long-range significance, but I was embarrassed for me after I thought more about it. But that's one of those issues where they take it out of context, they play it back home. Boy, I've spent our taxpayers' money to, translate Playboy into Braille, and they've got those pornographic pictures. You can't translate a picture into Braille, incidentally. But they do, Playboy. When I was at college, the magazine just started. I was a Playboy representative in college. I used to have a blazer, a little bunny on it, and I used to sell subscriptions to my classmates, and they'd send me some aftershave and stuff like that, and I made a few bucks. But Playboy over the years had some pretty darn good literature in there. So there are some votes. If I examined 12 or 13,000 votes I've cast during my career, if I had it to do over, would I do it differently? The answer is yes, probably upon sober reflection. But I really honestly can't think of any major issue where I voted one way and then thought about it later and decided I voted the wrong way based upon the information available at that time. You always have to qualify it. Everybody, hindsight is 20/20, and people are saying, now boy, if I knew then what I know now, I never would have voted to give the president authority to go into Iraq. Look what's happened. Well, we didn't know then what we now know. And I played poker a lot in my life. And
so if you did know now what you knew then, would you still have voted to authorize the use of force in Iraq?
Yes, I would have. And under the theory that the President of the United States as Commander-in-Chief should have that authority in this very difficult situation. And what a lot of people forget, Linda, is that the President of the United States as Commander-in-Chief has the authority at any time to deploy troops, just like that, his order, anywhere in the world that he thinks our national security interests are in jeopardy. But the President wisely, and one of the lessons he learned from his dad, is to go to the Congress first. And he went to the Congress and asked for the resolution before he acted. So that was a smart thing he did. He did the right thing. Now, the mistakes in Iraq, I think, were not so much involved in going in with the military action that we did when we did, based upon the information available at that time. The mistakes are after we went in. First of all, I don't think we sent enough troops in initially. Secondly, I think we totally misread what was going to happen. And quite frankly, the guy who left the administration is a guy for whom I have the highest regard and wasn't on the winning side of many battles with Rumsfeld and company, and that's Colin Powell. the wrong guy left the administration in my mind. And I remember vividly, I wrote him a note when it was speculated in the paper that he might step down. Dear Mr. Secretary, please, please, please resist the temptation. Stay. We need you now more than ever. And I used to send him notes 2 or 3 times a year. And a few weeks later, I got a note back from him. It's time. I used that in my announcement that I was not going to run for re-election. I used that vignette, and then I said, when I announced that I was not going to be a candidate, it's time.